my name is Ashley Davis, and I'm going to give a persuasive speech over physician-assisted suicide, of how it should be legal in the U.S. Physician-assisted suicide should be legal in the United States because legalizing it would help those that are terminally ill by allowing them to leave the world with dignity and being less traumatic on their family members. It's also will allow the suffering that the ones that are terminally ill, meaning their physical pain that they have, or the mental pain of whether or not they're being a burden on someone. And also legalizing it would help the U.S. stay current with the European countries because it is legal in Norway, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Switzerland. The reason it preserves the dignity is it preserves the way they died, so it's not traumatic for the family, so they know what's going to happen because it's planned out. They have to have a written consent, so they can't be oh well, they wanted physician-assisted suicide and it's actually just murder. It's peaceful because it's by pills. You take a lethal dose of pills, but you have to give it yourself. You cannot have somebody else give it to you. And the reason it preserves their physical dignity is because when it's done and you look like your normal self, you're not have cancer victims, they have bruises and tracheotomy holes and everything like that in them. So it preserves what you would normally look like for the family, so they don't have that image of what you look like when you were really ill and just about to die stuck in their head, and they just see you as you've always been seen by them. And it also just helps preserve the memory. Although physician-assisted suicide is important, that it preserves the dignity, it's also important because it stops the suffering, which is probably the most important reason why it should be legalized, because the patient that typically chooses physician-assisted suicide is a cancer victim, and cancer does not have a cure. So it stops their physical pain. If you have cancer in your bones, then you won't ache every time you did something, or you won't have to chop off a limb, and it could still cause to go everywhere. So it just stops their physical pain of hurting, but it stops the mental pain too of being a burden and always wondering, am I hurting my family by having them take care of me? Do I need to change something? Do I need to try new things on my own? And always wondering what's going to happen to them? What is this disease going to do to me? I know I'm going to die. Can I just die now? It just helps them stop thinking about those things. Legalizing it in the U.S. will help stop the suffering and preserve the dignity, but also it'll help keep us current with the European countries, because America is lagging behind. European countries consider it legal, and it's known as the Benelux laws. That's how it's pronounced. And there in Switzerland, there are non-residents that have chosen physician-assisted suicide of 149. So it's kind of a big number considering the fact they're not residents, they're from the U.S. And the states that it's legalized in is Oregon, which was the first U.S. state to legalize it, and then Washington, Vermont, and California. And New Jersey is debating on whether or not they should legalize it, because most people feel as it's still murder, so you should be prosecuted as murder. But in Europe, they do not prosecute it under criminal law. But the other reason that it's not legal completely in the U.S. is because in Europe, there are still deaths that they say is physician-assisted suicide, but they did not have the person's consent. But they can't prove it because the person's dead. It's different from euthanasia, right? And because physician-assisted suicide, it's the patient's decision. they have to write it down, and it has to be known, hey, I want to do this, let me do it. And because in euthanasia, it's the physician's decision to do it. And you, in the US, you are not allowed, if you lived in Kansas, but you wanted to use physician-assisted suicide, you couldn't go to Oregon, Washington, or the state that it's legalized in, because you are not a resident of that state. So physician-assisted suicide should be legal throughout the United States because it allows people to choose what they want to do with their lives, and it lets them leave the world with dignity, physical and mental. And it stops their suffering that they have endlessly, and it helps the U.S. stay current with the rest of the world and not lag behind. And many citizens actually want it. They did a survey, and 47% of the citizens in the United States are actually